Imagine this. You're lying on your deathbed. The room is silent. Everyone's watching you, waiting to hear your last words. Do you drop a deep philosophical truth bomb? Do you confess a lifelong secret? Or do you just mumble something random like, "Don't eat the fish"? History is full of famous last words, some tragic, some wise, and some that changed everything. When Julius Caesar was assassinated, he looked into the face of his friend and whispered, "Et tu, brute?" When Alexander the Great was asked who should inherit his empire, he said, "To the strongest," sparking a 50-year war. Rome's first emperor Augustus turned his death into a performance with, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." And Napoleon Bonaparte's final words summed up his entire life. France, the army, head of the army, Josephine. These aren't just quotes. They're like windows into the minds of history's giants in their final moments. So grab a drink, settle in, because for the next some minutes we're stepping into history's most dramatic deathbeds. And I promise you'll never forget these lines. There's something strangely powerful about last words, right? They feel final, almost sacred. We know these leaders lived larger-than-life lives. They fought wars, ruled empires, changed history. But when they were about to leave this world, they were just human beings with one last thing to say. Some of them chose words of love. Some of them chose words of anger. And some left us with mysteries that historians are still debating centuries later. Rome, 44 BCE. Julius Caesar, the man who turned the Roman Republic into his personal power base, walks into the theater of Pompey for a Senate meeting. But this is no ordinary meeting. A group of senators, many of them former allies, surround him. Daggers flash. Caesar is stabbed again and again, 23 times in total. At first, Caesar fights back until he sees a face in the crowd that stops him cold. Marcus Junius Brutus. Brutus wasn't just another senator, he was like family to Caesar. And then Caesar says those legendary words, "Et tu, brute," which translates to, "You too, Brutus." With those words, he stops fighting. He pulls his toga over his head and falls, dead, at the feet of Pompey's statue. It's one of the most dramatic scenes in history, and it turned Caesar's death into a symbol of ultimate betrayal. Would you rather be stabbed 23 times, or just once by your best friend? Now jump forward almost 3 centuries. Alexander the Great, the man who conquered the Persian Empire and marched to India, lies dying in Babylon at just 32 years old. His generals gather around him in panic. The world's largest empire is about to lose its king. "Who shall inherit your empire?" they ask. Alexander whispers, "To the strongest." Just 3 words. But those words are like a grenade thrown into the room. Because what does that even mean? Who decides who's strongest? The result? A half-century of bloody civil wars known as the Wars of the Diadochi, as Alexander's generals fought each other for control. In a way, it's like Alexander's last words were his final challenge, a way of saying, "Let's see who among you is worthy." Was it genius, or did he doom his empire with those words? Now let's talk about Rome's first emperor, Augustus. This is the man who turned Rome from a chaotic republic into a stable empire. He was a master of image crafting, propaganda, and public performance. So it makes perfect sense that as he lay dying in 14 CE, he said to those gathered, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." That's not just a last line, that's a final curtain call. Augustus saw his life as a performance. He was the lead actor in the drama of Roman history. And with those words, he gave the audience permission to celebrate the show. It's theatrical, poetic, and maybe even a little cheeky. If your life was a movie, would it end with applause? And finally, we come to Napoleon Bonaparte. Once Emperor of the French, conqueror of Europe, Napoleon now finds himself exiled on the remote island of St. Helena. His health failing, he spends his last moments reflecting on his life. His final words? France. The army. Head of the army. Josephine. That's it. He names the 4 things that meant the most to him: his country, his beloved army, his own role as its commander, and his first wife, Josephine, the love of his life, whom he divorced but never stopped loving. It's tragic, romantic, and patriotic all at once. Napoleon, the man of ambition and conquest, died not thinking about power, but about love and loyalty. So, what do these last words teach us? They teach us that even the mightiest of rulers, emperors, conquerors, generals, are just human in the end. Julius Caesar's words showed heartbreak. Alexander's showed ambition. Augustus's showed showmanship. Napoleon's showed love. And maybe that's why we're still fascinated by last words, because they strip away all the politics, all the power, and show us who these people really were. So, which one of these last words do you think is the most powerful? Would you rather go out with a dramatic mic drop like Alexander, a poetic flourish like Augustus, or something deeply personal like Napoleon? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this dive into the final moments of history's greatest leaders, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, because I've got plenty more fascinating stories from history coming your way.